Hello again and welcome to the Warhammer 40k Imperial Guard Tactics video. So, before we get into today's video, I want to say a huge thank you to Benjamin Matteson, or Matson, apologies, if I've pronounced that incorrectly, for sending in some really cool pictures of his Praetorians, which are based upon the Swedish Royal Guards. The Livgarden? Apologies if I am saying that completely incorrectly. Absolutely love Praetorian models, and I think you've done a really good job on these ones. Just look absolutely fantastic, and I dread to think how much this set you out of pocket, because Praetorian models are worth more than their weight in gold. They are really, really valuable. You regularly see a single Praetorian model going for £10–15 on eBay, if not more. So, absolutely fantastic job on the paintwork, mate. And thank you for sending your pictures in. If anyone else has any pictures they would like me to use, please post them on my Facebook page. There will be a link in the description down below. And I just love looking at Imperial Guard pictures, and I love giving you guys recognition for the hard work that you've been putting in. I mean, I love the Imperial Guard ones. I also love some of the really old school Nurgle models, especially I can see that cheeky, really old school Great Unclean one in there. It's amazing how big the Great Unclean one is these days. The old school one is probably the size of a Demon Prince by today's standards, if not smaller. But anyway, less heretical ramblings about me liking Nurgle and more Imperial Guard tactics. So, something that I have noticed as 8th edition has gone on is there is a lot of invuln saves these days. A lot of invulnerable saves. And as a Imperial Guard, we have relatively few ways of getting past invulnerable saves. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, essentially, I noticed this when I've been going to tournaments and I've been using my Armageddon Steel Legion. And what I've noticed is that my Steel Legion are pretty tough. They are tough models. Everyone's in tanks. It's a lot of armor for people to deal with, and the lowest toughness in my vehicle pool is like toughness 6. But even then, that's not very low. I've only got 3 toughness 6 models, and then I've got 6 toughness 7 models, and then I've got 4 toughness 8 models, and the whole army's got a 3+ save. And that is really good. And what I've noticed about the Imperial Guard is that our durability comes from just having a high toughness. And we have pretty good armor saves on our vehicles. We've generally got a 3+ save. Now, that's all well and good, and you really notice how durable that makes you to small arms fire, as it should do. But the moment someone rocks up with something like a las cannon, which is considered, at this point, 8th edition, not even that great at anti-tank. There are way better anti-tank options out there, which just, AP -4 or Haywire for days. Haywire's making a big comeback. And so what I've noticed is that at the beginning of 8th edition, having a high toughness coupled with a decent armor save was generally enough. It generally was, a lot of people were jealous of the Guard's ability to throw down so much tough armor. Now, as 8th edition has come along, the ability for people to get through that armor has increased. There's a lot more. You used to pay a real premium for any weapon that was over AP -1. I mean, think about the difference between like an autocannon and a heavy bolter, the price difference, and a las cannon or a missile launcher. There's a huge jump from an autocannon, which is 12 points and is 2 shots at strength 7 at AP -1, 2 damage, and a missile launcher, which is AP -2 but is 20 points. It's almost a 50% increase, almost a double the price. Sorry. So it used to be that having just good armor and a good arm save was enough to get you by. But I notice with my Steel Legion that there's so many invuln saves, and you really notice it when you're facing an army which has invulnerable saves, and you don't. That's when you really, really notice it. And a good example, well, there's so many examples recently. I mean, Imperial Knights are an example, and they're a very common army. They have high toughness with a good save and a good invulnerable save. They have the ability to get up to like a 4+ or a 3+ invulnerable save. Something crazy. You know, with rotate ion shields. And that makes them so durable. Harlequins, whilst they have low toughness, they're actually a really tough army, and they're a really strong army, because whilst they're all toughness 3, toughness 4, some things are toughness 5, they don't have anything higher than that. The huge amounts of the army are -1 to hit, which we've already talked about being a really good thing. And a huge amount of the army, and everything in the army has at least a 4+ invuln save, which means when you think about it, 60% of the shots, they are 16% more durable from the fact that they're -1 to hit, just straight up. And then 50% of everything that you do hit on them gets stopped. So Harlequins, which are meant to be this quite fragile army, they genuinely are really not. The Harlequins are surprisingly tough. Okay, and then you have things like Storm Shields on Space Marines. One of the most common forms of invulnerable save. 5 points for a Storm Shield on most Space Marines. I think characters pay a little bit more. They pay 15 points, but most Space Marine units have access to Storm Shields, and it's 5 points for 3+ invulnerable save. And I play. One of my regular opponents, a long-time viewers of the channel will know, is Johnny. He has his own channel now, Scholar Progenium. Go and check it out. And he runs Deathwatch. And one of the big things that he has learned to do with his Deathwatch is to get them Storm Shields in there. I picked up some Terminators for cheap, and I gave them to him. And they had like Thunderhammer Storm Shield. And he put one of those in every single one of his kill team. And on top of that, he had a bunch of Vanguard veterans with Storm Shields, and he put one of those in every kill team as well. And oh my god, it's a genuine chore to get through those Storm Shields. It's crazy. It's crazy because they're so tough anyway, Deathwatch. They're really hard as nails. And then the fact they've got a 3+ save is just... Then you've got, just continuing on examples of easy access to invulnerable saves. Dark Elder. Most of their vehicles with the Dark Elder, doesn't matter how much AP you have, the worst you're ever going to get them down to is a 5+ save. And most of them have only got a 4+ save. So anything like a las cannon, you're actually paying a premium to do less damage to them. Because the difference between a las cannon and an autocannon against a Dark Elder is negligible. Absolutely negligible. Because you're both wounding on 7s. You're both wounding on 3s. And then they get a 5 pinball save against both shots. One's a flat 2 damage, one's D6. My rules, it's always a fucking 1 or 2 on a las cannon anyway. So for me, I don't, I pay a premium to take a worse weapon against a lot of armies these days. Custodes, they were very popular, not so much anymore. The biker Custodes are still pretty good, but they're not as amazing as they're not as common as you once saw. Everything in the Custodes army has some kind of invulnerable save. 3+, 4+. Smash Captains. Blood Angel Smash Captains. You can insert 3 Blood Angel Smash Captains into pretty much any list. I know post-Africa are taking a bit of a hit, but they're still very good. 3+ invulnerable saves. Dark Elder Talos. 4+ invulnerable saves. The list goes on. I've gone on and on. What I'm trying to get across here, guys, is Guard, who are relatively... Guard started off with a very traditional amount of toughness and durability, but there were ways to counter it when people start bringing in las and stuff like that. That was how you countered it. But we don't have a way to stop, like most armies, to stop these high powers. We don't have a lot of invulnerable saves. And the problem with the Imperial Guard is a lot of our big guns, which we need, are getting a bit invalidated by the amount of invulnerable saves. Space Wolves, just off the top of my head, no examples. Wolfram, Storm Shield Dreadnought, Space Wolves. Invuln saves for days. Anyway. So it's, how do we deal with these? How do we deal with these these invulnerable saves, because at the beginning of 8th edition, I was a big believer in go big or go home. Big believer in go big or go home. It's all about that plasma. It's all about that melter. You know, absolutely. It's all about las cannons, all that kind of stuff. I honestly believe now that it's still important for armies to have things like las cannons. You know, Imperial Guard armies to have las cannons. And obviously plasma is great. Can't go wrong with plasma. But things like melter, which have sort of been just clinging on by their fingernails. You know, because it's a bit more expensive, but you get that D6, blah, blah, blah. Like, things like melter have really been struggling, because especially you're not going to pay 17 points for a fucking melter gun on a veteran or scion. You're not going to do it. And you still really don't want to pay 12 points for a melter gun on a bloody guardsman. You don't want to do it. It's just, you know, things like melter guns really struggle. Las cannons are really good, but they're getting harder and harder to justify in my lists. Honestly, they're getting harder and harder, because so many times they just bounce off. They just completely bounce off. And I think, you know, they're genuinely, and I've talked about this before, I think genuinely we're having to transition a little bit. I think go hard or go home, go big or go home, is no longer like the go-to strategy of the Imperial Guard. It's no longer just you take the heaviest hit of motherfucking things possible because you need it. I honestly believe now, you know, we're coming up to a year and a half of 8th edition, you know, and I really think this is a shift even more so to mass firepower. It's becoming a die spam game. Absolute die spam game. Autocannons. Autocannons are quickly becoming my go-to heavy weapon. I know, it's crazy. Beginning of 8th edition, what did I say about autocannons? Shelve them. They're shit. Don't bother them. That's what I said at the beginning of 8th edition. Every game I play now, I'm like, las cannon's fucked again. But at least my cheap autocannon managed to sneak 2 wounds through. Yeah, I regularly find that my especially with the amount of Dark Ale that flies around these days, I find my autocannons to be invaluable. I have 12 autocannons. I run them nearly every game now. I think I have more than 12. I think I have like 15 autocannons. I just run them now. I don't even question it. I think it's almost like we're going back. This is crazy. It's almost like we're back in 6th edition, guys. Autocannon plasma squads, I think, are the way forward. That's how it used to be in sort of 6th edition, because both of the weapons had strength 7, so they complemented each other quite nicely. I think autocannon plasma is a big, you know, it makes sense to me now. Autocannon grenade launcher, obviously fantastic. Just, you know, how to put this? The autocannon grenade launcher is a timeless combo. Some editions it's better than others, but it's always a good addition. But in sort of in 8th edition, with there only being a 2-point difference between a plasma and a grenade launcher, you know, really you're sort of gonna go for the plasma every time. You might as well pay those 2 points for the upgrade, and you can always overcharge it. Yeah, so plasma is still absolutely fantastic just because of how cheap it is. But melter guns, I'm not sure. Las cannons, I'm not sure. Missile launchers, I've not liked them in 8th. I've never liked missile launchers. Yeah, tough. Obviously, this has kind of been infantry focused, but just to spend 30 seconds talking about tanks, I think we're going to really start seeing the rise of conquerors in the Imperial Guard, and conqueror battle tanks and battle cannons in general. Battle cannons in general have been solid since the beginning of 8th edition. No one has ever disputed how good the Imperial Guard battle cannon is, and it's still good. I do think though that there was definite arguments to be said about demolisher cannons, and definite arguments to be said about definite arguments for taking plasma executioner tanks. I think again those 2 options are now dropping a little bit, becoming less important, and because of all these invuln saves, and I think the battle cannon is rising back up, and I think the battle cannon triple heavy bolter tank is going to be a real threat, real important threat. Fortunately, I think the classic gold standard Leman Russ is still my go-to option. I have 3 of those things. I don't leave home without them. If I'm running a hybrid list, I don't leave home without my three Leman Russes with battle cannon, las cannon, and 2 heavy bolters. Because even though we've talked about, there being a lot of invulnerable saves, that las cannon, you've got to spend at least 8 points on the heavy bolter anyway. So you might as well upgrade it for 12 points, because it's only a couple of las cannons across, 2 or 3 las cannons across the army, and there will always be something for a few las cannons to shoot at. So this is the thing I'm going to sign off on. Okay, there's a lot of invulnerable saves out there now. It's making like the classic las cannon spam of my armies from beginning of 8th edition become less and less potent. Switching over to having more auto cannons and plasma and grenade launchers in my army, it's definitely helping. But I still think it's important to have a few las cannons. But I think guard players are going to have to spend a little bit of time finding the balance between where's that sweet spot on the number of las cannons. And I think if you're taking 3 or 4 Leman Russes, I think putting a las cannon on those guys is probably enough. I think about 4 las cannons is probably enough these days. But no, maybe I'm wrong, guys. This is just what I'm encountering at tournaments. This is what I'm encountering on the competitive scene. Lots and lots of invulnerable saves. What do you guys think? Please leave lots of comments. Tell me what you're thinking. Am I mad? Am I just wrong? Is it just my meta? Or is there a general prevalence that the most powerful armies out there, the top tier armies, are the ones which have access to easy invulnerable saves, especially of the 3-up variety? Thank you guys. Thank you for listening. What do you think about my ideas for switching from las cannons to auto cannons? Leave lots of comments, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you very much.